Arcadia Queenie had a peep over the right shoulder, and she's going to blow them away. But Northerly, Danny Miller pumping away, and Northerly wins the railway.
Welcome to Racing Rewind. Our panel will review and digest the Prime WA Saturday Thoroughbred meeting from 24 hours earlier. If you have an opinion, send a text to 0427 789 571.
Galaxy Star draws away from them. Pike Magician.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Rewind. A big thank you to Alex, Marty and Jeff up in Port Hedland doing a stellar job with the aftermath, as I welcome in and say a very good morning to an up and about Richie Bell, but you are a little bit flat because you went to the beach this morning as you do each and every morning, and you soon realised when you tried to get out of the car that it wasn't quite conditions for swimming. Rich, good morning to you.
Yeah, the timing was quite spectacular, actually, at Lochie. I was just about to get out the car and the first lightning strike came crashing down. The thunder was very, very relentless. The rain started pouring down as well. It was as though God had a churlish attitude this morning and he wanted to take it out on me. So, a little bit flat with no exercise yet, but here in one piece. Yesterday was interesting because the track was a heavy 8, of course, at Pinjarra Scarpside, and it seemed to play very favourably from about one horse out to about 2 or 3 horses out, but you didn't want to get out much further, and quite a few horses were able to make really good ground through there nearer the inside.
Exactly right. Looking at some of the results, a horse like Right to Silence was in the right place at the right time, ran second at 40-1. Captain Chaos ran third in the feature of the day at 30-1 up along the inside fence. So there were a few horses that were just able to get in the right part of the track at the right time, highlighted by the win of Keep Attacking at 70-1, if you don't mind. But before we continue the remainder or start the review of the Pinjarra Park meeting, we'll go through some of the big bets from yesterday afternoon and also upcoming for the remainder of the weekend.
These are the Sunday Aftermath Big Bets and Collects on Tab Radio, Racing and Sport.
Y'all ready for this?
All right, I'll focus on Pinjarra and then we'll go over to you for the East Coast results. Rich, yesterday there was a $4,000 bet placed on Terratif. That was a hard watch for that punter. Dark Looks, a $250 bet at $16, netted a $4,000 result. And there was also a $5,000 bet on Schmoove Mover at the $1.90. So that's locally. How about the East Coast, Rich?
Yeah, well, at Murray Bridge, Stolen Kiss, there was a $1,500 bet for a $13,500 result. At Eagle Farm, Pirelli, $2.35, a $2,500 bet to win $5,875. There were some big bets that went down on Pippi Beach, $10,000, got up on the inside and ran a close second, and that went down. And Maisie as well, a $5,000 bet for 0 result. What about this multi-winner at Pinjarra?
A big Alan Matthews fan by the looks of things. Dark Looks into Keep Attacking at $697. Only a $10 bet, but it doesn't matter when you're betting at that price. $6,970 jumps in the bank. How good is that?
Outstanding, and they'd probably be wishing they had 20 on it to double that. But that's pretty handy, though, $6,970. And the Sunday early money we've got to look at as well with money today for Charcoals at Sandown, race number 2. A good meeting at Sandown. Great to have that on a Sunday. Forbes, we got Caravansai. I think it's race 1. Also race 5, Give Me Joy, and race 7, High Dandy. And there's a few at Kalgoorlie, Lochie,
which I don't have in front of me at the moment, Rich. I'll throw back to you.
Secret Style. They're both favourites in the first 2 races. Pearly Nugget's also the favourite, so they've come for the 3 favourites. So Don't Wait for Luck, Secret Style and Pearly Nugget. Secret Style trialled brilliantly at Belmont Park recently. And Miss Wall Street as well in race number 6 has had early support.
All right, well, let's get into our review of the Pinjarra Park meeting. And first off, we'll touch upon the stewards report. Not a great deal to report other than the fact that Braden Garth was suspended for 10 days for careless riding after his ride aboard Repeater. He just shifted at the wrong time, near around the 1,000-metre mark. So he'll be out of action for 10 days starting on the 9th of August, and that will cease midnight the 19th of August. But other than that, not a great deal to report. So let's get into our review of the Pinjarra Park meeting, and we start off with race number 1, which wasn't for the 2-year-olds because the horses have all celebrated a birthday during the week. It's the 3-year-old Mrs. Max Plate over 1,200 metres where Cape Lewin was able to lead all the way.
Going up third, Hubble's Dragon as they come around the home corner. Queen Cartel back toward the inside, starting its run, Radiant Light from further back. But Cape Lewin has a nice kick at the 300 mark. Cape Lewin, a length and a half to split the G. Hubble's Dragon, Radiant Light struggling at the moment out near the middle. It's still Cape Lewin giving back as a great sight. 120 left to go. Cape Lewin's the leader. Hubble's Dragon picking up, but Cape Lewin's going to hold it. And Cape Lewin all the way. Cape Lewin goes home to beat Hubble's Dragon, split the G. Fourth home, Radiant Light, just didn't look comfortable in the ground. Followed by...
Nice win, Cape Lewin. He's always looked like a work in progress, and Darren McAuliffe more or less outlined that post-race as well. He's just a really big 3-year-old now, still a little bit immature, and you could see that was on display early because he actually didn't begin all that well, Rich. He was just about the second last horse out of the gates, but Brad Parnham just elected to roll forward and use the big long stride that he does possess to find the front, and from there just rolled them along at a nice even tempo. He had split the G to his outside, giving him not exactly a great deal of company. Hubble's Dragon was just in behind the speed with Radiant Light a pair further back. But Cape Lewin, it was just a nice win. A controlled tempo out in front, put the foot down that hill at around the 500-metre mark on the Scarp side track. And from there, he was the only horse you wanted to be on because the favourites, they weren't able to make up much impressionable ground down the middle of the track when they needed to, and this was the first sign of the fact that the rail was certainly the place to be at Pinjarra Park yesterday.
That's definitely right, and Scotty did indicate on the Inside Running show that there was a real possibility that Cape Lewin might find the front, and in that position could be a different horse against the rail, and that's exactly how it turned out, because at his previous runs, well, when he had his first start at Bunbury there, he was all at sea out wide and out the back, and he was very green and hanging. And then his next start was really good there behind Mardusa, went up on the speed. And Mardusa's a pretty talented horse, and Radiant Light almost chopped him down that day, but Cape Lewin just held Radiant Light. And then at his next start, he wasn't able to get near the lead there, and that was the difference. And he finished just worse than midfield behind King of Light, Aberdeen Flower and Bannard. But yesterday, finding the front was a completely different story, and was able to control the race with a beautifully rated ride out in front by Brad Parnham. Hubble's Dragon was good again and finished nicely. Split the G, came off the back of an excellent trial. The horse is still a bit raw, though. He's got a funny sort of head carriage about it, but it will get better with age. And Radiant Light didn't really get warm until that last 100 metres, Lochie. Didn't seem to handle the conditions that well before that, but the final 100 metres was pretty good. Yeah,
absolutely. Prior to straightening, he looked like Steve Parnham didn't really have a great deal of horse underneath him, but the final 100 in particular, after the line, watching him live at Pinjarra yesterday, you really noticed how strong he was. So perhaps the 14 back to the 1,200 metres, just off the 7 days told, and also, as you touched upon, he may have not enjoyed the heavy 8 conditions because he just couldn't get any traction into the race when he needed to, and therefore he just ground away into fourth until that final 150 metres. But that's race 1 wrapped up. A reminder to get your text through on 0427 789 571. Marty likes to read through these and he likes to deflect from criticism to himself. However, if you text, you will get on. That will be the guarantee this morning as we now head to race number 2, which was for the Westpeed Platinum Gallopers. And once again, Repeater led all the way.
Back on the inside is Right to Silence with room to come through. Ridden along behind them, Bondi Plunge, and now Pike is starting to stoke up Cruise to Victory, who's working into it, and so's Kira Louie. Repeater's the leader going to the 250. Kira Louie a length and a half, Divine Impact. Behind those is Cruise to Victory, trying to pick its way through. It's getting an opening. Repeater's still the leader though, Right to Silence. And in behind those, next of all, Cruise to Victory, but Repeater's going to cling on, and Repeater does win again. It makes it Wellington, a hat-trick of victories. Repeater, scored from right to silence, cruise to victory. Bondi Plunge, Kira Louis, all flooding.
Well, Repeater's come back in excellent touch. Won at Bunbury over 1,200 metres, leading all the way again at Pinjarra Park, and has done it again at the Scarp side as it continues to rise through the grades, and really appreciating these soft track conditions being by universal ruler. So it's been a magnificent campaign, very well timed indeed. Horse has always shown good ability, but it's come of age this campaign, and that was a top performance out in front. Lochie, right to silence, I thought fought on pretty well. Ran a couple of good placings last campaign. One of those was behind Six Shooter, who's quite a nice horse, so has always shown a little bit right to silence and plugged on well after racing up on speed. Cruise to Victory is not a big horse, has got a little bit of a turn of foot. It seems to maybe lack the absolute brilliance to be able to put these races to bed, but will continue to run consistent races.
Absolutely, but the story of this race has to be Repeater and the way that Jade Tangaroa has placed him this time in. Clearly, it's been a long-range plan to have him in work at this time of year, and he's come back better than ever. 3 wins in a line now, and that was a dominant win. Braden Garth, you could see in the early stages of the race, he just wanted to ride him like the best horse in this event, and that's exactly what he did, because he found the front. He was willing to do a little bit of work early from that outside draw, but once he did find the front, he was the horse you wanted to be on. As you've touched upon, Rich, right to silence does have a fair level of ability and was suited by the way the track was playing yesterday. It was a nice ride from an informed Jay McNaught to get this galloper in the box seat. A few horses that were disappointing from back in the field, and I'd love to get your thoughts on their performances, Rich, was a horse like Mia Gusto, who has performed well in this grade previously, but namely History Won't Care. He just looks like he gives Clint Johnson Porter a really hard time in the saddle. He wants to lay in, he wants to lay out, and in particular, he really wanted to duck in towards that inside rail when he really needed to be making his run, and in the end, he's been beaten 14 lengths, Rich.
Yeah, and the news out of that is that Jason Pateman, he doesn't mess around once they put in a run like that, straight out for a spell, this horse now, and didn't handle the conditions at all. And I think watch for him first up. He won first up brilliantly, and I think next campaign, now that once he gets these wet tracks out of the way, he'll come back first up and he could well win. Mia Gusto didn't do anything at all from back in the field, but might have been another one that didn't quite appreciate the conditions. I think Kira Louis is a horse that you can follow. I'd like to see this horse sit a little bit closer, third, fourth, the fence. If he can get that situation over 1,400 metres, that's when he's most dynamic. Bondi Plunge looks fairly limited, just battled on after racing handy to the speed.
And for a horse like Kira Louis, Rich, we have to be really forgiving of horses like her, because she made her run down the middle of the track. So all throughout the afternoon at Pinjarra yesterday, it became more and more evident that you needed to be closer towards that inside rail. So for a mare like Kira Louis, she made her run around the field, and therefore her run had much more merit than perhaps it did on face value. The text line call has backfired immediately towards me. This one is for Brittany's brother. Is Starcevic coming to the Eagles? As we now move on to race number 3.
Real Deluxe at the top of the home running. A length and a half clear. Gigi Pops, Countess of Kenner in the white silks. Then Sunshine Tafe getting up underneath of it. Frappuccino near the rail. Followed then wider out by Spectacular Park. Corn Cob looking for the short way home. Pike's trying to weave his way through with Terra Tiff. Spectacular Park hits the lead with 150 to go from Countess of Kenner. Terra Tiff just getting into a bit of traffic down near the inside. Running on Beccalotti from last as well. Spectacular Park's in front though. Terra Tiff finally gets clear, but it was too late. Spectacular Park beat Terra Tiff, who didn't see a lot of daylight. Beccalotti's been a monster of a run from the tail of the field, and Gigi Pops close up.
Spectacular Park, luckless last week, Rich, but made amends yesterday, courtesy of a lovely ride from Clint Johnson Porter, although the talking point out of the race might just be the very unlucky Terra Tiff.
Yeah, Terra Tiff's one of those horses that always looks to weave its way through the field, as it did first up in Victory, and unlucky again there as it tried to scythe its way through. But the winner was really good. I think this horse has been turned around by Michael Grantham. I know it won its maiden first up without the blinkers, but it wasn't much of a race. And then at its next start, it just never got warm back in the field, and Michael was quick to put the blinkers on, and he completely turned that pretty ordinary run at Pinjarra over the 1400 around. When he finished that fourth, as you mentioned, unlucky that day when held up for a run, and CJP couldn't really get at him, and he was working the line well. And then yesterday, on the heavy 8, with the blinkers on, has finished stylishly down the outside.
Really nice win, so we'll break that down a little bit further in the sense that he has been luckless throughout this preparation, in particular that last start. Just a beautiful ride from Clint Johnson-Porter, and this was the only horse really that made up significant ground down the middle of the track to play a part in the finish there yesterday. And Michael Grantham suggested post-race that he'll probably look to step him up in trip out to 1,400 metres now. He might just be finding the 1,200 metres a little bit short for him, and he could be looking for a little bit further now. But let's break down the run of Terratif now, Rich, because she was the short price favourite. In the end, she got the blows late, perhaps because of the way the track was playing. I think she started around 260 with the WOP, but she just wouldn't go a yard early, but continued to gain more and more momentum. And in some senses, she had the perfect man on board, because if she's going to continue to race like this over these sprint journeys, it's going to be a hard-in-mouth watch.
Yeah, definitely. She has got up to 1,400 and been victorious at Ascot, so she can run out a strong 1,400. Beyond that's a question mark. But I think yesterday, victim of circumstances in the sense gate 1, although it was good to be nearer the inside, in the end it drifted well back through the field on the inside, and then Willie was able to make quick ground as he can do on these sort of horses. But then just seemed to get held up a couple of times. I think Sunshine Tape was the first one to sort of lean onto Terratif a little bit and cause him a few little issues there. Just a bit of intimidation. And eventually Terratif got clear and is absolutely motored. So, yeah, he's going to be a horse to follow 1,200 through to 1,400 his next couple of runs. GG Pops, the draw was a little bit tricky and did have to do some work to get outside the leader, as Scotty indicated on inside running, that he probably have to do a little bit of work to get into a position, with the likes of Real Deluxe and Frappuccino showing good speed in the race, and the speed was on there. GG Pops battled on really well. I think this horse will be better soon as it goes up in trip, and it has got over further from last campaign. It got up beyond 1,600 metres. Corn Cob was okay getting up on the inside. I like the run of Becca Lotti here.
Massive.
Yeah, it bumped into your horse once. Remember when Son of a Boss absolutely rocketed home to win, and Becca Lotti
beating her nose?
Yeah, in those days, Becca Lotti was racing on speed and was seen as a bit of a sprinter. But then, of course, eventually, Becca Lotti got up to 1,900 metres at Geraldton and raced over 2,100, was a winner at 1,900 metres at Albany and Geraldton, before being unplaced in the Walkaway Cup. So potentially he'll be stepping up to those sort of trips again.
Absolutely. Really nice way to start the campaign. Going back to race number 2, we do have a message. Hi, Loch and Richard. Can someone please explain to Darren that the idea of Lay of the Day is to find a horse that gets beaten? Last Saturday, Want a Winner. Wednesday, Country God. Yesterday, Repeater. That is from Sean from Ascot.
Yeah, well, they talked about
tough caper.
They talked about the reverse mock, actually, at the very point where Darren was tipping Repeater as his lay of the day. And it's happened again. There's been about 4 or 5 in the last 3 or 4 weeks from the various tipsters with the lays. But, yeah, it's just one of those runs. There used to be Mick the Mocker back in the your dad would remember very, very fondly Mick the Mocker back in the 70s or maybe the 80s. And he became very famous for his lays, and a lot of them used to win.
Well, it's a great story. Another message in regards to the track. I'm not sure who this one is from. In 1947, 64 mil of rain fell on a Saturday at Belmont Racecourse, but the show still went on. On the 3rd of August 2025, 8 mil of rain was recorded in Belmont, but the race day did not go on. Were the track curators in the old days a bit more adaptable than the new age curators, or did the horses have flippers instead of horseshoes? I'm not sure who that's from, but if they were around in 1947, they're doing a good job knowing how to use their phone and send a text to the Retrovision text line, Rich.
Yeah, well, the equine evolution of the horse's hooves obviously has gone from flipper mode to non-flipper mode, and it's made the difference. But no, I think the integrity in terms of safety is much more salient these days, and also the fact that they really need to protect this track after the recent refurbishment at the 150-metre mark. So it was a rational, logical decision.
All right, that's 3 races down. We'll take a break now. On the other side, we'll be back for the feature of the day, which was the Jockey Celebration Day Stakes.
You're listening to Racing Rewind for Oakland Park Stud, where champions are born.
Led by about 2.5 lengths at the top of the running from Multinational and Investment Strategy. Then Sensational worked on to try and build through the ground. Followed further back. Then on the outside, Vast Start. Lord Gannicus now coming under pressure at the 250. On the outside, Investment Strategy, and splitting them is Sensational. It's starting to really wind up Sensational. Sensational comes out after Lord Gannicus, who comes back, but Sensational starts to edge clear, and Sensational makes it a winning return over the stablemate Lord Gannicus. Captain Chaos was able to track right up on the rail to grab third spot in front of Investment Strategy, blazing away.
Good win, Sensational back at the races today. There were a couple queries on him. First up at 1,400 metres, but we knew that he would love the conditions on display yesterday, and once he found the position he did 3 back the fence, he was always going to be very, very hard to beat. Rich, a really nice ride from William Pike. He was set for a huge day in the saddle, Willie, perhaps not the overall result he wanted in terms of wins there yesterday, but he got the one that mattered most, and that was the win in the big one aboard Sensational.
Yeah, and Macca bounced back here after the lay with a repeater, because this was one of his on-top tips, and no one else tipped it to win. Sensational. 3 back the inside, as anticipated. That's where he loves to race, likes the soft conditions as well. Of course, strung together 5 wins in a row last campaign, 1,400 to 1,600 metres. Really his peak distance, and 1,400 metres first up was never going to be a problem coming off the back of a trial where he wasn't really knocked around, where he finished 7th in that trial. So it was a very good performance to get over the top of Lord Gannicus. Sort of got to Lord Gannicus, and I thought just for a fleeting moment Lord Gannicus might fight back, because he's got a bit of tenacity, this horse, but Sensational proved just how good he is by clearly coming away from Lord Gannicus, who is racing very well, and beat him by a length and a half in the end. What about Captain Chaos? That's great to see for Peter Giorgesco. It's been a long haul for this horse, of course. Had a bit of a glittering career there for about a season and a half, Lochie, where he was producing some outstanding performances with his finishing runs. But Peter's got hold of him, and off a long injury, and gradually has worked into form, showing a few little traces.
Exactly right, and that's what was on display yesterday. As I said earlier on in the program, aided by the way the track was playing, and certainly advantaged taking that Rouse run with Troy Turner aboard. But completely agree with your sentiments in regards to just the feel-good story of seeing him back and racing well. Lord Gannicus, he was well backed late into $4.40 second favouritism. Perhaps not all that well suited at 1,400 metres, but the Blue Spec Stakes is over the mile next start in a couple weeks' time. I just wonder if he could really take off before the corner and give his stablemate in Sensational something to chase down. Food for thought, he might be able to make things interesting late in the piece. Vast Start, I was quite keen on his chances yesterday. I really loved his first up run in the Bolton, but he just raced really flat, Rich. He never looked likely, and yes, he wasn't in the right part of the track, but he was very disappointing for mine.
Yeah, I think the weight got hold of him. The 59 kilos was always going to be the concern. Coming off a pretty tough run there first up, which was off the back of only a pretty ordinary trial, but yesterday, out in the middle of the track there with 59 kilos. I think you can watch him from here on in over 1,600 metres. He should go well, and if he's better weighted, and now he's got that second up run out of the way, I think he can improve. Investment Strategy wasn't bad. came off that trial win where a Droit actually ran second in that trial.
A maiden.
The maiden. So the trial didn't read that well, but then a Droit came out and ran a cracker actually on Wednesday, coming from near last to finish third at a massive price. A multinational probably had to do a little bit too much bullocking work. Sisu Warrior, forget it, went round. It was out deep, and there were no abnormalities when it was vetted after the race. So I think the run just took its toll, and CJP was pretty easy on its final 150 metres when he knew it was out of contention. Blazing Away wasn't bad. He could be set for a good staying campaign because he picked up some late ground from last.
It is the time of year that some of these horses will be getting ready for Kalgoorlie campaigns. So a horse like Fast Start obviously won the Hannons last year, and Blazing Away, he does his best work over a trip, so he might just well chime into some of the lead-up cups in the lead-up to the Kalgoorlie Cup early October. Looking through the text line again. Morning, gents. I'm speaking from my pocket, but yesterday was a punting nightmare. Form guide got thrown out. This winter has been a disaster for Saturday racing. It will go down in history as that. Track staff in these country tracks need a medal, though. They've done their best. Cheers. Dave from South Perth.
Sorry, Dave. Yeah, a couple of races there probably hit you hard. Races 6 and 7 with Dark Looks and Keep Attacking, and Alan Matthews has hit you for 6 there. But if you look at some of the other winners, they weren't impossible to find. Like Repeater was well in the market. Spectacular Park was well in the market.
We touched upon it probably 4 to 6 weeks ago now, Rich, when the rain first arrived, and the importance of looking through the stallions of horses and the breeding of horses in terms of wet tracks. A lot of punters would never look at the breeding of a horse, but for mine, I believe that's probably the best guide to understand or predict if a horse is going to handle the tracks. You find your universal rulers, you find your machinos, you find your sessions in Sensational's case, and they're generally the horses that handle it best in terms of our local breeds here in WA.
Yeah, a few of them as well bred elsewhere. Ocean Park, Spectacular Park. And yeah, Repeater by, as you mentioned, Universal Ruler there, and horses that were gettable in the market as well. In the last gauge, Rhodes was around about 5 to 1. So there was 4 or 5 winners there in between $3.50 and $6. So if you concentrated on those races, I guess you're a chance. But if you concentrated on races 6 and 7, then you were certainly blown out of the park. But
I do agree with you, Dave. It has been hard going, especially when we've been going out towards the outside portion of the track. And then yesterday was the opposite. So if you're keen on a horse drawn wide and back, you could just about rip up your ticket.
But the other advantage, Lochie, of actually investing on these wet tracks is say a winner like the horse that ran second to Keep Attacking, Super Session.
Yep.
Darren mentioned in the morning that this horse was completely on the wrong side of the track the start before. It got beaten out of sight by Woburn Gold. Yesterday, it's turned about 6 lengths around on Woburn Gold, but you could have actually picked that from that previous run, but the market didn't follow that because Super Session started $16. So you can find value as a consequence of these wet tracks.
Another one from the text line. Remember, you text, you get on 0427 789 571. Do you have to pay for your own fuel driving down to Bunbury and Pinjarra all the time, or does work pay for it? Wow, that is a wonderful text message.
Yeah, that's a sticky one over the years.
All right, we'll straighten things up and we'll head towards the quaddie legs. It's the MCA Polytrack Handicap where Little Silver continued on his winning ways.
The deepest of them, and Henchard last. Little Silver sprints to the lead though and headed off Kelvinator when they went past the 400. Little Silver, Faithful, has gone for home and kicked away. Excel Train works into the clear, followed then by Autumn Rebel and Kelvinator battling, and On Patrol keeps coming right down the outside. Little Silver's in front with 120 left to go. Autumn Rebel, Excel Train getting up on the inside as Faithful now goes for the Shillelagh. Little Silver's going to stave them off, and Little Silver's won it from Autumn Rebel and also Excel Train. They're the minors just in front of Kelvinator On Patrol.
Nice win from Little Silver, and when I spoke to Steve Wolf pre-race, he more or less suggested that he's a battler, nearly on his mark, but he is going well, and I think he's somewhat underrated, this horse, because he's come back in fantastic order. He had a wide draw to overcome yesterday, Rich, but Tash Faithful put him into the race at the top of the straight, and he was the only horse he wanted to be on.
Yeah, wasn't he up for sale for like
$12,000?
$12,000.
That was the reserve.
Yeah, that was the reserve. Yeah, so you could have picked him up.
He's won $80,000 this campaign.
$80,000 just this campaign. I think he won a little bit after that potential sale that didn't go ahead. So he could have got a bargain there with Little Silver, and he can continue on his winning way. Why not? Especially with these wet tracks around, he's handling it really well. But I think Tash rode a good race because he's been having good runs to race very well, including a very good second 3 starts ago, and then 2 very good wins now. His win 2 starts ago had a pretty nice run in 5th place, got to the outside and finished stylishly yesterday. Was forced to make that early move on the outside of the leader and then gradually just put it to the leader, put Kelvinator away at about the 250-metre mark and edged clear and was able to hold on and win from Autumn Rebel, who's been gelded and ran really well. Yeah. This is a horse, Lochie, who's really shown a touch of class throughout its career and looks to have come back well.
Absolutely. Really excited to see him return off a tendon injury as a gelding now, and I certainly didn't expect him to be as close as he was yesterday. We've seen him do plenty of racing from back in the field and flying home late when he was really up and going. He's still so lightly raced, and he's very, very well bred, a 5-year-old by the Autumn Sun. So he won't be a horse to follow just yet. I'd like to just see him do it twice before we put him into the follow file, because sometimes, as we've touched upon a little earlier, they can just put in a slightly flat run second up, but really liked his run. Excel Train continues to race honestly. Kelvinator, well, he was headed by Little Silver a long, long way out from home, but he still managed to run home into 4th. And Petrushka, the other horse that was in this market, started $6, was your drifting favourite in the end. Perhaps just not in the right place at the right time, but for the most part she was disappointing, and she is a mare that does need further than 1,400 metres.
Yeah, I think Digby and Scotty both made this the lay of the day, but it was $6 chance, so it wasn't a true lay, but they indicated they did not like the horse yesterday, and they got it spot on, just battled away, a bit more of a staying type. Both On Patrol and Classic Road were horses that made runs wide on the turn and then completely on that worst part of the track down the middle there On Patrol and Classic Road, so you can forget about the fact that they have finished unplaced and beaten 3 lengths and 4.3 respectively. I think On Patrol was a very good run actually, and if it draws a gate next start and gets a soft trip on a better service, it could be very hard to beat.
I agree. He has returned better than ever On Patrol, and you can definitely be forgiving of his effort yesterday. He still ran home very, very well. And to be honest, he hasn't put in a bad run this time in. I think Chris Parnham is getting along with him very well. So that's race 5 wrapped up. Continuing on the Retrovision text line, Keg has chimed in. Kaz just said that she backed a few universal rulers yesterday and she got no return. Her exact comment was, "That bugger Lochie cost me plenty yesterday." She ain't happy, which sees her taking it out on me all day. So I'm sorry about that. I'm causing domestics in households now, Rich.
Yeah, well, I guess you got to find the universal ruler that's in a bit of form, and Repeater was that horse.
Another interesting text message: how much percentage drop in turnover will occur from going to Pinjarra to Belmont? I think this message means the other way around. And will Wednesday go ahead as a lot of rain is predicted? It is absolutely hammering down in our East Perth studios as we speak, so we're only 5 minutes away from Belmont Park. I think Belmont will be A-OK for Wednesday afternoon. We do get a fair break in the weather between Monday and Wednesday afternoon, but the message in terms of the turnover, I'm not sure, but it is something that has been of great debate and discussion over the last few weeks, well, probably the last 6 to 7 weeks, Rich.
Yeah, I don't think there's many punters that would have changed their opinion whether the meeting was at Belmont or Pinjarra in terms of what they were going to invest on. I mean, it'd be a different story if it was Belmont Park to a track that was shaped like Moonee Valley or something like that. But, you know, I don't think it would it make much difference to you, Lon, in terms of what you're going to invest on? Not
for me, but I think for the East Coast punter it might.
Yes.
I think they're much more familiar with an Ascot or a Belmont, True. And that's where we may see a decline in turnover, and therefore that's why I find it very disappointing when we're not racing in the metro area, but that would be the only thing. Good morning, gents. Just wondering why Dan Morton is listed in tab form as training out of Eagle Farm. Steve from Melville. I've been wondering the exact same thing. I noticed this yesterday going back to the opening race of the day where his 3-year-old in Hubble's Dragon lists Dan Morton training out of Eagle Farm. I will go one better, Steve. I will message Dan's racing manager, BJ Ryan, right now, and I'll find out that answer for you because I've been wondering the exact same thing. But we'll continue on our review.
Yeah, congratulations to Dan too for getting Hubble's Dragon on course in time all the way from Eagle Farm. The only connection I can see is that his father, Len, won a lot of races at Eagle Farm and also at Doomben.
Scenic Shot.
And even Dan as well. So,
Scenic Shot, Scenic Blast. They did some of their best work.
So, maybe it's a hangover from that.
Hopefully. All right, we'll continue on this review and we head to race number 6. And finally, it was the day for the Alan Matthews trained mare, Dark Looks.
Is up to them out there 5 deep. They're followed back behind them to Snazzler, and then a gap of 2 or 3 lengths. Kisses from Kelly. Manzor Magic a long way back. Longines hit the front. Longines at the 300 on the outside. Here comes Cosmic Chaos. Cosmic Chaos taken up on the outside by Sean O'Donnell, goes to the leaders. Dark Looks finally gets clear near the inside and runs on. Dark Looks comes at Cosmic Chaos, whose runs come to an end. Dark Looks, Cosmic Chaos grinding it out as they reach the line. Dark Looks. I thought it was Dark Looks just over Cosmic Chaos. Longines battled away, admired running on from Manzor Magic, Royal Trooper. And then
Dark Looks. It had been a long time since she had last saluted the judge, and she looked like she had a good think about it late, Rich, but nice to see her, I guess, rewarded for her consistency over the last few years and get a well-deserved result for Alan Matthews.
Yeah, and its last start wasn't too bad there behind Snazzler in a funny run race where horses had got further back in the field than expected, just struggled to make up the ground. But Dark Looks actually picked up really well in that final furlong after having to pick up a lot of ground from the corner. So it was actually a really good run. And as Alan indicated in his post-race, a few times this horse has been placed this campaign. I've been in Class 1s where it's been forced to carry close to 60 kilos and 60 kilos on a couple of occasions as well, whereas yesterday, right down to 54, sat a little bit closer. Pat rode the perfect race on this horse where he was just tucked in behind Longines there and then saw some daylight over the final 200 and then really ground out very nicely through along the inside to catch Cosmic Chaos, who did loom as the winner there. Lochie came with a nice run. Sean O'Donnell really hadn't let the horse go, and it looked like it was just trucking in it and just going to sweep past them, but just couldn't go on with it, the tough conditions, the final stages.
Yeah, I went into this race very keen on the chances of Cosmic Chaos. I think he's been building into the preparation really well. Sean O'Donnell jumps aboard the first time, and I was on very good terms with myself at the top of the straight. He just jogged into the corner, and I couldn't believe it when Dark Looks was the horse that got him on the line, but no denying how well he's returned. Summer Brass has him absolutely flying. Longines, very, very tough on-speed performance, settling outside the lead of Your Eyes, who ran second last, beaten 7 lengths, and Longines was able to hold on to third. Manzor Magic got a long way back, never looked likely in running, just ground away late. I think you can continue to follow Manzor Magic. He may have just needed that run first time out to the staying journey. All things considered, I still thought the run had some merit, albeit I still wouldn't be backing him at $3.70 next start.
Yes,
either.
It's a difficult assessment because he actually came wide, but he came super wide, and I'm not sure if it was the worst part of the wider part of the track in the sense because horses were struggling to make ground, say, from 4 out to about 7 horses out, but he was like about 9 or 10 horses out, and the grass seemed to be cut a little bit more out there, out wider, and he was able to zoom that final 150 metres and making really good ground. So maybe he was actually on a little better strip there, I don't know, but the run looked good. And I think next start is going to be hard to beat. Admired once again, picking up from the back of the field at 100-1. Royal Trooper backed up again and was working to the line okay over the final stages to finish 7th. Gracious Dio was forced to make that move from about the 700-metre mark, and eventually it was just a little bit of a bridge too far.
We'll clear the text line. It is absolutely going off, Rich. One punter suggesting that Cosmic Chaos wins if he goes straight. I think that has some legs, at least.
Maybe.
In theory, the betting should be just as good at Pinjarra as it's a better track for shape, camber and length of straight than either Ascot or Belmont. That is from the Postman. I guess if you're a local, you might believe that, but if you're on the East Coast, you generally pronounce Pinjarra, and therefore you don't know what it is.
Good point. Kisses for Kelly. I think maybe just kisses from Kelly. Maybe just needed that hit out over the 2200 first time this campaign over a distance. So I'd be forgiving of the run and also in the conditions. Although it has handled the conditions before, you can get different heavy tracks. Just never seemed comfortable.
Morning, gentlemen. Do you know if there was a track rating done yesterday morning at Belmont Park? Bill from Thornley. No, I don't know, Bill, but hopefully someone will be listening right now and they can provide us with an answer. Big shout out to Charlie Pommy Pie Jr. and his third goal in 4 games for the Coolies integrated men's team. At $10 a point, he's costing me a small fortune, so I need a good tip today from you blokes. Jim the Pommy Pie. Do you have a winner at Kalgoorlie for Jim the Pommy Pie?
I think we'll go the first race there at Kalgoorlie today, race 1, and the Jester's Son looks very hard to beat. Don't wait for luck. I'm not sure how well it's going, and it's $1.70. It looks very skinny. Jester's Son was very impressive last start for Helen Harding, and it's at $2.50, so I think that could be the value in race 1.
And going back to a little bit earlier, sorry, Richie, you're wrong. If Mick the Mocker tipped them, they didn't win. He went 2 years every Saturday until one saluted.
Yeah, actually, after I said that, I realised that I had got that completely wrong, and I remember Mick the Mocker having an incredible run for a long time, but he did have one run where he sort of, I think it was about 4 weeks in a row where they were all won, but he did have that massive run, so that texter is absolutely correct.
All right, we'll take a break and then we'll be back to review the final 2 races out of Pinjarra Park yesterday.
You're listening to Racing Rewind for Oakland Park Stud, where champions are born.
Van Pajula hugs the fence. Woburns Gold still a fair way back. Miss Flirtatious joined now by Super Session. Super Session accelerates, races to the lead. Smooth Mover back in the field. Really flat-footed in the ground at the moment. Desert Nymph coming at Super Session. Keep Attacking's getting up in behind them. Super Session's the leader. Over on the outside, Desert Nymph, Keep Attacking coming in the middle. He's driving Super Session. Keep Attacking or Bob and Go. Keep Attacking dived at Super Session. Camera. Desert Nymph third ahead of Petula. Russian Sniper. They were followed then at the head of the others.
Keep Attacking at 70-1, a running double for Alan Matthews and Pat Carberry, which is great to see yesterday, but certainly didn't see this one coming. He was able to settle just a fraction handier than he had been from barrier number 1, and under the urgings of Pat Carberry, he was just able to lift him over the line late, Rich.
Yeah, look, he's been a smart horse in the past, Keep Attacking, but he just didn't quite come back with those 2 runs in the autumn. But if you go back to late last year, he, after finishing second to Bongai Plunge, he then came out and bolted in and beat Sunbronze. He then came out and ran second, close up behind the very smart Cosmic Crusader, who flew to win that day. He then really rocked home to just missed in a 3-way photo, Miss Flirtatious D'Amber. It was a nose-by-nose, and he looked like he'd won that day for Willie Pike, Keep Attacking. Then he came out and beat Twain's Angel and Son of the Boss, your horse. And, you know, that reads as very, very good form for a race like yesterday. So if you went back on that form, he should have been sort of 7 or 8 to 1. But he had those 2 runs in the autumn where he was very disappointing on a couple of occasions. He changed trainers. He trialled fairly. Wasn't really knocked around in that trial over 1,000. But in a sense, he was the forgotten horse, and the fact that he had changed trainers and coming off 2 ordinary runs in the autumn. But, yeah, if you went on that late spring, summer form, he was very hard to beat.
Super Session, he's going well, and so is Zephyr Johnson Porter. He didn't ride a winner yesterday, but his ride aboard Super Session, very good, and his ride aboard Outspoken Lad in the last to lob 1 out, 1 back from barrier 8. Outstanding. Unfortunately, he didn't get the rewards that I felt he deserved, but he's getting ever so closer to his first winner on a Saturday. Desert Nymph, a run of the day for mine. Certainly a horse to follow. She was huge. I love the fact that Michelle Hagley has her up in work at this time of year. She absolutely loves getting her her toe into the ground, she has to be a horse to follow, Rich.
Yep, but the big, on wet tracks for sure, but the real big horse to follow, I think, out of this is Pinjarra. It had to go back from the wide draw and was hopelessly unlucky over the final 250 metres, just never saw daylight and was under restraint in the final 100 metres. So it was an excellent return by Pinjarra, and Smooth Mover just did too much bullocking work. It was like it was running with the bulls there in Spain, because there were horses all around it. It was doing the bullocking work out wide. It looked gone at the 250, and I thought it showed really good tenacity to come back and start moving into the race again before just peaking maybe that final 25 metres or so to be beaten 3 lengths. Completely forgettable run. This horse could definitely win next start.
And Willie Pike was of the opinion that he may have not handled the heavy track conditions there yesterday as well. So rule a line through that performance yesterday as we now head to the last of the day, and Gage Rhodes was able to get back into the winner's circle.
Rommel's Goddess has been wide most of the way, then Mystical Man, No Peer. Uncle Gerard saved up back in the field, then Ton of Grunt, but Showlass led them at the 300. Showlass about to be joined by Gage Rhodes. Showlass, Gage Rhodes, for the moment they've got it between themselves. Gage Rhodes gets a neck to Showlass. 150 left to go. Gage Rhodes now drops a gear, kicks away from Showlass, and Gage Rhodes is home. Gage Rhodes pulls away from them and won the last easily from Showlass. Right up along the rail, No Peer for third, fourth Ton of Grunt from Mystical Man, then Outspoken Lad, Uncle Gerard.
Gage Rhodes takes out the last of the day. Sean McGrady, he was quite humorous post-race. He suggested that he hit the front and he really needed to get the Ollie Roar out to lift him over the line, because he had a good think about things late. But in all honesty, in the end, he's won with a leg in the air. He's won by over a length and a half. Showlass was brave on speed, but nice win from Gage Rhodes in a race that was dominated by the on-speed runners.
Yeah, I think the difference yesterday compared to his last couple of runs where he sat sort of 4th or 5th and had horses all around him, yesterday he just got that very, very good flow right up on speed, and he's a sort of grinding type, and he was able to do his own thing there and then just have clear running up the straight and cut down Showlass. He's a really good front runner, but in a sense is a horse that you can get over if you've got the quality to be able to do it. No Peer was really good again, flashing home, but did use the inside section there, whereas Ton of Grunt I thought was terrific. It was one of the few horses out wide to continue to make ground down the middle of the track, and this horse is getting very close to a win. Mystical Man was really good first up. Uncle Gerard was favourite in early markets. Did it start favourite in the end? I think it started second favourite. It drifted out to 550, but it will never again be listed as the favourite in early markets, I don't think. And a few people had it on top as well, but was probably one of its more disappointing runs because it has been racing very, very well.
Bluey here, you got to have been drinking Gage Rhodes to back it yesterday. It's a hard horse to follow. Speaking of horses to follow, what do we like out of yesterday's meeting, Rich?
I'm going to go with Pinjarra for sure. I think Smooth Mover can bounce back. In the last, Canny Jack I thought was most unlucky. Should have finished a lot closer as well. And back to race number 2. I think Kira Louis, up to 1,400 metres, if it can sit a bit closer, can run a really good race next start as well.
For me, Desert Nymph is the big one. You need to keep following her, especially on the wet tracks. Cosmic Chaos once again, and not quite Autumn Rebel just yet. I'd like to see him do it again before we're happy to follow him next start, Rich.
Fair enough.
Today's Racing Rewind is brought to you by Oakland Park Stud, the home of ingratiating, sessions and shooting to win. Go to oaklandparkstud.com.au for further details.